All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you to the brave souls coming in bright and early here in beautiful Amsterdam. You are in the Data to Decisions, how IoT and Agentic AI are transforming industry. So it's one of the rare sessions here. We're not focused on law necessarily. We're not focused on hardware, which a lot of IoT sessions end up focusing on. We're really focusing on how do you start getting value out of all this data that you collect. So I'm your moderator, Alan Proithis. I'm the CEO of Capstone Partners. Our format today is pretty simple. All our panelists will do a short self-introduction, and then we'll jump into some questions and, time permitting, take one or two from the audience. So again, I'm Alan Proithis. Prior to my current advisory firm, which accelerates connected business, I was the founding president North America for Sigfox and built a network covering 70 million people. And most recently was CEO of a private 5G company enabling high data IoT applications, which I sold earlier this year. So having said that, you want to start us off, Kai?
All right, yeah. Good morning. My name is Kai Hackbarth. I'm head of products and solutions at Bosch Software and Digital Solutions, as we call ourselves. And let's say I have been in the IoT space for almost 25 years, starting with a small medium enterprise in Germany called Proithis Software. We were specialized in embedded IoT middleware, in device management, software, firmware updates over the air. And in 2015, Bosch acquired Proithis Software, and from there, I basically, have been working in a lot of different industries. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Wanig Pennec. I'm head of partnerships at Onomondo. Onomondo is a cellular connectivity provider. We have a global coverage. So we have our operation in more than 180 countries, and we utilize 650 plus networks around the globe. And yeah, my experience is basically in building ecosystem, building partnerships, and with key players in the IoT industries, but also in telecom in general.
My name is Tom Feuerstein. I lead scaling AI or AI at scale for Capgemini globally, so across industries, across geographies. And regarding Agentic AI, I already have experience since 2 years, which is a lot in the industry. So 2 years ago, I was CTO in the innovation lab of Mercedes-Benz, and we created an Agentic AI prototype to replace car designers. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about what Agentic AI can do actually today, because it's a bit overhyped. It's maybe not that new, maybe it is new. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you, gentlemen. Has there ever been a new technology that was not overhyped? Is the question, And you go through the. That's why Gartner has that delightful, curve of, peak of expectations and then trough of disillusionment. But I think this is going faster than most other technologies. I'm going to go off script a little bit here because, what I find too with new technologies, people throw terms around that they aren't necessarily familiar with what it really means. And maybe I should start out by saying, what do each of us believe Agentic AI really means? Because, frankly, I still remember 6-7 years ago when robotic process automation was taking off like crazy. Basically, I called it Excel macros on steroids, of course. But now this is really the next generation of that concept. But I'd love to hear from each of the panelists. What does that really mean to you? And let's start with Tom.
Yeah, so agents are not new. Software agents exist since decades. It basically means here's an input, think about it, what to do, and then do something. Just intelligence or the brain inside of it is evolving. So for me, this new wave of Agentic AI is putting LLMs at the core. So what was the challenge with RPA? You need to precisely define what the input is and what the output is, and really, really nail down how the process looks like. And this is typically non-existent in companies or very fragmented. So my hope or my definition for this new flavor of Agentic AI is that it can handle more ambiguity. So unclear inputs, unclear outputs. But maybe later on in this discussion, I want to challenge, is this really the right thing for IoT? Don't we need more deterministic models? or where would be a place for non-deterministic and ambiguous brains in IoT?
Yeah. So I think from our point of view, being in a cellular connectivity provider, I think it has always been important for us to make sure the data. So when you collect data, it could be on the edge where you process those data, or you process the data in the cloud. But for us, the important part is to make sure we can transport this data in the right way without being corrupted, without being transformed, and also in a secure way. So agentic AI in this case makes this even more important, because we need to have reliable data. We need to make sure that when we commute the data, from the, let's say, the device to the cloud, the application in the cloud, we need to make sure that this data remains, correct. And also the latency for us is very important in this case, because we want real-time data to be able to process it. So that's most important for us. Yeah.
All right. So I think, for me, I like Tom's definition, right? So the LLM is basically, what's new here, right? So like I said, so I'm in the IoT space for 25 years. So it started with, when we started was especially smart home kind of systems, right? So the problem with these systems was, the user had to be smart, right? So the system was zero smart, to call it like this, right? And I wouldn't say we are there yet, right? But that's, my hope is that with Agentic AI, where you have one or maybe multiple agents that, do the job for you if you want, right? And we have, a couple of examples where we, started using Agentic AI. I wouldn't say like, there is a breakthrough, right? But the point for me is, even if it's like, a small job that, can be improved, right? There is a benefit, right? We have to see if there is an economical benefit or user benefit, that maybe to be discussed, right? But that's, the thought I see it, right?
It's really, as our society evolves, it's really, we continue to find ways to really automate everything and take humans out of the process to go faster and hopefully make better decisions. I don't think we always understand some of the impacts of the agents we implement yet, but that'll come in time too. So when we talk about some of these things, you talked about models, okay? How should we think about, the different models? Are we talking one master model, multiple models, models for different use cases? Who owns the model? How do we think about that when we think about agentic AI?
So it's still hotly debated in the research industry if we will see like the super brain models or the super specialized models. We hope for the super smart, they can do anything models that are the big promises. But what we're seeing today in production and what works today is highly, highly specialized. And not make it as big as possible, make it as efficient and small as possible. So my personal opinion is also that for quite some time, for quite some years, we need to have really, really specialized systems and therefore really, really specialized models or agents. You can take a semi-specialized model and make it a lot more specialized through an agentic system around it. But that's what I'm seeing in production at the moment. Super, super specialized, very, very, unique.
Yeah, I would say it's also our experience, absolutely. The thing is, right, so depending where the model runs, that also makes a difference, right? So if it's, locally running, let's say, for example, in your home gateway or you're in your industrial facility, or if it's running in the cloud, right? The data that you, let's say, use to process it, right? There's IP involved and so on, right? So still, I would say a lot of, I don't want to call it open questions, but things that we really need to be mindful of, how we deal with these sort of agents and generally LLMs,
It's funny. I always find that the big monster, all-knowing system always sort of conceptually is attractive, but just to me never seems to work in reality. It's sort of like when you're 14 years old and you see that advertisement for that Swiss Army knife that has 60 different tools in. But it's not good at any one thing, as they end up never using it. You've compromised for every last thing in the pocket knife. And that to me is sort of like this with some of these models, that if you don't optimize for a particular use case or industry, you tend to be not good at anything, at least for the time being. So I can see that. So I know Bosch does a bunch of consumer stuff and industrial, of course. You're doing a lot more industrial stuff. Sounds like everything. All right. So let's talk about the difference of how to think about the industrial side versus stuff that touches the consumer, because it's very different. It's different the way you implement connectivity. It's different in the way you implement these models, or because this is all really new stuff to people. So how do you think about those differences?
I mean, so I would say I had my first personal experience, I would call it, right, earlier this year, also together with Capgemini. So for Hannover Messe, we developed, let's say, a demo where we used our IoT platform. We connected an industrial tightening tool. And this tool gives you torque, gives you angle, gives you battery level, and so on, right? It's used in the automotive and the aerospace production, right? So Airbus is using it for tightening the windows in the airplanes and so on, right? And we then had, I mean, it's not Agentic AI, but we had a Looker Studio, let's say, integration where you basically could ask questions like, you know, how many tightening processes were good versus bad, and show me a plot chart. How was the last tightening process, and so I mean, we did very simple things really only, right? But we had so many ideas, you know, where this could really help in the field, in the production, right? So for quality management purposes, for training, for let's say programming the tool for new tightening process and so on, right? So and then within the Bosch group, we had a lot of conversations, yeah, also together with Capgemini and also Google, yeah, how we can, you know, extend it. And I mean, in the end, yeah, the sky is the limit if you want, right? But we saw, I mean, there is really a lot of benefit from a user perspective, so from the tool user, right? Also when he has a problem with the tool, right? But also for other colleagues, right? So the quality management guys, the guys that do like the auditing and so on, right?
It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the projects in my last company we were doing is enabling private 5G networks for the top two, let's call it, farm equipment companies on the planet. And they even wanted to track how much something was tightened up for warranty purposes. So 2 years from now, if something broke, they would know how much force was applied and use that to educate themselves better. But Tom, do you want to address that, sort of the whole consumer versus industrial?
So picking up on your remark, Kai, I think in enterprise solutions, every time a human is involved or you need an interface where a human interacts with something, that's helpful. But when you have really highly automated systems, maybe an IoT device in a production system or something, you want deterministic behavior. You don't want an LLM. So I see at the current stage of the technology only a small points of usage for this technology, but in the consumer industry, it's much more easy. The risk is much lower. Consumers are more forgiving, and they don't look that close. Yeah? They just get an answer. Sounds good. There's not like a Bosch engineer saying, no, this is here in the detail. And when I do it 1,000 times, it's 20 times wrong. So this is where I see it working in customer service, in quality management. Always when you need a human in the loop for quality assurance, or just to make sure that nothing went wrong. And this will stay true for quite some time, as long as we have LLMs. When we transition to other types of models like world models or digital twins or that sort of thing that is far more out, then this will be different. But at the moment, I don't see it in the IoT where you need deterministic behavior.
It's funny. I see digital twins seem to be going a lot faster than I expected lately. just because some of the value, but nothing is perfect in this early stage of the world for sure. So Wanig, let's talk about getting the data, because if you don't have the data, none of this really matters, right? So let's talk about how you think about equipping the data. You talked about real time, okay? And then, especially when you're talking about data that's collected over many different areas. It could be over partner ecosystems. It could be just different plants. So how do you make sure that gets pulled all together in a timely fashion so you can then act upon it in the appropriate way?
Yeah, what we see also from our discussion is that AI introduces some complexity. So meaning you have now different models, you have specialized models, and you have different players also in this ecosystem that need, to be involved to deliver the right solution to the customers. And what we think our role is as a connectivity providers is actually to make sure we all these use cases have, let's say, can benefit from a seamless experience when it comes to transmitting the data. And this is really what we try, to do as a connectivity provider, is to make sure that whatever the use cases, whatever the complexity of this use case, and we see a lot of complexity again in IoT, it's not the same, having a pilot on 100 devices than having, on 10,000. But our role is really to make sure that our customers or let's say the owner of the use case will have this seamless experience when it comes to transmitting the data. And we do that actually by partnering with different players in the ecosystem. It can be with Bosch, because they have the expertise on the devices, but also on the software. It can be with Capgemini because they have the expertise in the integration. And we try really to make sure that we can be, let's say, having a central role or orchestration role in this ecosystem, because we are in between, you could say, the devices and the application in the cloud, and this is the role we play to make sure the data integrity, the latency is good, and also we can deliver a global experience to our customer, meaning a global or borderless connectivity.
Yeah, the global seamless experience is certainly very important. I remember I worked for many years at HP, and I got a call after I left a number of years ago saying, "Oh, we need to connect this thing in every place on the planet." And I said, "That's wonderful. It has to be, not corded, but on a battery." I said, "That's wonderful. What size car battery would you like to attach to this thing? Because you're going to need so many different radios to make that work." So again, you have to really think about what your specific user requirements are and not just try to be all things to all people. So having said that, let's talk about, you mentioned partnerships and ecosystem. I'm a huge fan of going faster with partnerships and ecosystems, and those things tend to evolve over time as the industry evolves and your needs evolve. But how do you think about, what do you want to keep internally and what do you want to partner with in order to go faster to serve a particular need?
I mean, that's a very good question, right? So I remember we had at Bosch, when I joined through the acquisition in 2015, lots of discussions, not AI related, but rather, we want to play, the same role as an Apple, as in Google, right? So, if somebody, logs in, they use Bosch, to authenticate themselves. They have a profile there, and from there, we basically grow, right? This never came reality, to call it like this, right? So this was a dream, right?
There's someone called Google who's doing that.
Exactly, right? So that probably doesn't change for quite some time now, right? And I see also, for example, Matter, right? So Matter to me is a great standard. I think it can help, for example, to overcome this interoperability issues in the smart home domain, right? But I feel, because in the end, there are three big companies that sort of have control over the consortium, right? They define, how much you pay for, the certification, what's in the end in the standard and what isn't, and so on, right? And I think this is not the right way of building partnerships and ecosystems, right? So I let's say like the more open approach, right? So I used to be a board member of the OSGI Alliance, right? And every board member, whether it was a small or big company, had, the same voting rights, right? So I mean, my vote was as much worse as the one from IBM, for example, right? And I think this is the way how you can build, communities, to call it like this.
But what are your thoughts about that? Because you're really getting the data to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But how do you think about partnerships and ecosystem?
Yeah, again, I think for us, there is so much complexity, in IoT in general, and of course, Agentic AI can introduce more of these complexities. That we believe that it's not a standalone play, you could say. So it's more like an ecosystem play, if you want to be successful, because you will need to bring expertise, from different part of the let's say of the IoT stack. So we do our part by providing, the connectivity and software layers, that is attached to it. But we see also that we cannot go alone. So that's why for us, ecosystem is so important, and then partnership is so important, is because, we need to have the right partners to be successful and to deliver the right solution to our customer. Again, the expertise is in so many different players and in so many different industries that is important, yes, to have this approach for us.
And it changes quite quickly.
So, if I can only focus on one aspect of it, it's the hyperscaler or big tech relationship. That's what I talk most with our clients. And there has been a shift from we build chatbots and we have Copilot and we do GenAI to we want to automate our business with Agentic AI, because now it's a lot more scary. Now, we're dependent for a little bit of chatbots. That's okay, not that good. But we fully automate processes and the intelligence is from Google or something. That's very scary. So the typical approach I see from more conservative companies is an hyperscaler agnostic strategy. So let's take all of them and at the same time start open source. So that's slowly emerging that the performance of open source models and systems is really coming close to the cutting edge models. Or it's at least completely sufficient to catch up on years of trying to integrate this technology. So actually just in an hour I will have a meeting to create something where you can access all models and also open source, and can build whatever you want without being dependent. And I think that's the way to go. You can't trust any of them, and no one knows who will win the race. Maybe it's Google, maybe it's not. Not a lot of data, not a lot of cloud is on Google. So that's a typical dilemma.
That actually is a very known path. Like, think about all these hypercloud people launched, and then there were third parties that created sort of a mediation layer where you can simply grab different hypercloud providers without having overcommitment to one, shall we say, or it enables you to move back and forth. And this is a very similar thing, especially for an immature technology. You don't want to get locked in this early in the process because it's just the chances of being right are very low. So,
I mean, if I can, so what Tom just described is very much, let's say, the approach of Bosch, right? So we work with all hyperscalers, right? So. And I'm not aware that we do any, let's say, open source activities now, let's say, in the agentic AI space. Might be, but I really don't know. Anyway, I mean, Bosch would be, one of those who would, definitely support such, let's say, initiatives, to call it like this. I mean, Bosch has, for example, invested in Aleph Alpha. I don't know whether it was last year, the year before, together with Schwarz Group and so on, right? But in the end, also if you think about, sovereignty now, right? So I think that's, with the geopolitical, situation, right? So you also need to somehow be able, and probably open source is the way to do this, to work with local cloud providers, for example, right? And that will, in Europe, be, I think, a very important factor in the future.
That makes sense. So I know we're just about out of time here in our last 2 minutes. Let me ask a very provocative question, all right? I'm going to wave my hand, and now each of you have $10 million. but well, let's make it euros because it's worth more. And you have to invest it. Okay, you cannot keep it. You have to invest it. Not you don't have to throw out a company name, but like a technology or a function. You know, in the next 30 days, you have to invest it in something related to Agentic AI and IoT. Where do you put the money? Where do you think has the most promise?
That's a tough question, really. So, I mean, I don't have as much experience as Tom, obviously, right? But I mean, like I said, so we have this use case with this, with this tightening tool. We have use cases around connected tires, right? But I'm sure, like in the consumer space, especially, right? So there is a lot of potential that I personally have not yet explored, to be honest, right? So, but I probably would also go this way, right?
So you almost create a store of agentic functions that people can just grab and run with?
I mean, would be one way of dealing with it. Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
I think where you put your money?
Yeah, probably more into the industrial. So where Bosch is actually, I think, yeah, this is where I see most of the benefit, from being able just to look at the dashboard, when you get the data, and now being able basically to have a solution that acts, and thinks and acts. So I see a lot of in predictive maintenance. So I think this will be really a game changer in this field. But it could be also in supply chain where you see that you can have a rerouting, automatically of the supply chains based on those technologies. So yeah, but more industrial, I would say. Yeah.
All right, Tom, where are you putting your money?
Yeah, so it's not that much money, so I can't dream that big. Yeah, I think there's some zeros missing for some of my bigger problems, but for that amount, I think what I'm seeing at the moment that really creates a big impact is the orchestration layer in an enterprise. So you have agents sounds like a human agent, and indeed, in some ways, you need to treat these systems like a human person. So, how to handle access rights of those systems, how to organize them. Basically, at Capgemini, we call it AI resource management, derived from human resource management. But a lot of the stuff is the same. Can I trust this person? How do I onboard this person? How do I control this person? Which type of systems can this person access? It's exactly the same with agents. And it's completely unclear how to solve all of these challenges. And this is the cutting edge thing I'm discussing with our smartest people at the moment. So I think, that could have a huge ROI.
Yeah. No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think I mentioned outside I have a son who's somehow talked his way into running a bunch of AI product stuff at a major financial place because there's nobody else to do it. And the next job is they realize they don't have a definitive AI services platform that the whole company should be using. And someone once said to me, if you knew how many people were violating corporate policy right now using AI tools, you wouldn't sleep at night. And I think your point there about just having that approved platform that does the sort of replaces the human management with the AI management for security, for approvals, for process, for prioritization, frankly. I think that makes a lot of sense. So with that, I think our time is about up. So I think we'll be around if anybody has any questions. But thank you, panelists, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.